Another idea I had while I was sitting here making my last video was the idea of party composition. But not necessarily how good a party composition is, but necessarily how the party dynamic is between the party members. And what do I mean by that exactly? I'm not talking about synergies, like very clear, obvious, these classes work together, these are good classes to play together, and therefore they should be the only classes you play together, because they work well together. What I'm referring to is the synergies between the players playing their characters. And how I think there is a very clear divide between the player's character and their build. There is a very distinct difference between the two. I think, now, hear me out on this one. I think that you can play a character and play your build just fine. Just because you want to play a physically strong rogue does not mean that you are going to sacrifice your roguish elements. You can have a high strength as a rogue character and still have decent dex and work well as a rogue. You're not sacrificing your build for your character. So you can have both. It is very much possible. And everyone tells you as such. That while your build is important, and if you want your character to be good at certain things, your build is indeed important. But what's most important is what you envision your character being. That some people build their character where they make the build first and then they make their character second, or they make their character first and then they build off of that and try to pick things that are based around their character. That is very much a thing. Those are the two schools of thought. And there's the third option where you kind of you make elements of your character as you're building it, or vice versa. You kind of flip-flop between the two. But I think also in the same vein is that just because your build isn't good does not mean your character is not good. What do I mean by this? I'll give you two characters in mind that I have played before, and one of them I am currently playing. One of the characters I'm currently playing is very well built. They are a ranged attacker that specializes in high damage. High damage and support. Now, that is a strong character. They are one of the strongest party members next to our frontliner. They are the strongest character because they can deal the most damage, take the most damage, and is just strictly a very strong character because I helped build them. However, my character is very boring. What do I mean by this? Well, their storyline is basic, and the way that the character acts towards the other players is very monotone. It's very distant. It is very nonchalant. And so, by all accounts, it is a bad character, because it is a lone wolf style character in a team-based game. Not saying that those characters are innately bad, but if you build your character solely based on the notion or with the personality of I can do everything myself, I don't need anybody else, or I'm just here out of circumstance, I don't actually give a single crap about anybody here, that is a bad character. By all accounts, my character, in terms of their personality, the way I built the character is bad, but the build itself is good. And I think that's the difference, is that some people, not all people, but some people They judge how they treat your character based on how well you build them. It does not matter if you are a good character with a deep and interesting backstory that ties into the entire world, and you have connections that have their own lore, and you basically help the GM build this section of the world to make it easier on them, so you have something that ties you into the world and makes a certain portion of the world all your own. If your build is crap, if you have a very bad build, people won't care. They won't see, wow, you put so much thought into your character's backstory, how they act, how they treat other people. They'll think, you have all this good backstory, but your build is so garbage. Why would you do this? And it's the same the other way around. You can have basically no backstory, but build your character really, really well, and they'll say, wow, you made your character so strong with such good abilities and good synergies. Good job, you made a good character. And I don't subscribe to this belief. I think that the personality, the amount of effort you put into your character's personality, the actual way you portray your character in a lot of roleplay scenarios, and even in combat scenarios, the way you act, the way you move, is more important than your build. Because if you are playing a boring, bland character, but your build is strong, you're probably not going to be having a lot of fun most of the time. Because if you're not doing anything that involves your strong build, you're going to be bored, because there's not a lot to do outside of that. Not to say that you can't have a strong build and a strong character. That's what I try to go for most of the time. But it seems like a lot of players, especially coming from D&D in particular, they focus mainly on how strong your build is. They don't care about your character, your backstory, anything. They only care about how strong your build is. And I think that's sad, because I've had players with really interesting backstories and decent builds, but then nobody wants to talk to them because they're just not a strong build. It's not a good build. It's an okay build at most, but they just don't care. They're not emotionally invested in this player or their character because they perceive them as weak. They perceive their character build as bad, and thus they don't want to interact with them because they don't see a point in interacting with somebody who isn't on their level, so to speak. And that's not to diss them on anything. Like, you can most certainly have an opinion, but I think judging a player's build choice and then choosing to treat them and their particularly treat their character in a different way solely based on the fact that you know out-of-game knowledge about them and you're treating them different in-game because of it is kind of a shitty move. You are essentially telling everybody, I don't care about you. Your character does not matter to me. All I care about is what you can give me. Even if it's not directly to you, you are telling them that you only care about what they can provide. Can they provide damage? Can they provide support? Can they provide damage mitigation? Can they provide anything at all? And even if it's a minor amount, you'll still nitpick about it. And that's a very shitty thing to do. I think you should care about the character first and foremost, and then worry about the build if it ever actually becomes a problem. If it's not a problem, don't say anything. If they want help, they'll ask for help. If they don't want help, don't help them. If they're having fun, leave them alone. It's fine. I promise you.